All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hot Mess Podcast. I'm your host, John Fay. With me, I have Jordan Ezel and Allison Silabovsky, and we have a special guest today. We have Lu Ann Cahn. Lu Ann Cahn is the Director of Career Services at Temple University, which she's held this position since December of 2014. Before this, she's a longtime journalist in the Philadelphia area, having worked for NBC 10 News and WCAU TV for 27 years. She's the author of the memoir I Dare Me, which is about her career and her life. Uh, she she's very well versed in the world of journalism and communications, and we wanted to have her on today to talk to mostly the students who listen to our show, because the three of us are Temple students, and we wanted to have somebody on who can kind of give us the ins and outs of the industries for when we graduate while we're still in school. And we'll give it over to Lu Ann. Thank you again for coming on our show, Lu Ann.
I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you for making me a guest. This is wonderful. I love that you've created the Hot Mess podcast. But I must say, I don't think any of you are a hot mess. But I love the whimsy in that title.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, basically, we really wanted to make this podcast. So, sometimes being a student can feel like a hot mess. So, a hot mess podcast for fellow hot messes.
Yeah, I gotcha. Sometimes we all feel like a hot mess, but even professionals sometimes feel like a hot mess, and we all need guidance sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we're really excited this week. We got some engagement on our social media for some questions. So shout out to Alyssa and Michelle for sending some questions in. So we'll start with the first one and kind of piggyback off from there. But a good question that was brought to our attention is, how would you approach salary negotiations or a raise if you've been at the company for a while?
Okay. So this is always a little bit tricky. And timing is everything when you're asking for a raise. So you got to think about a number of things. One, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So if you know your company is going through right now and cutting back, which a lot of companies are doing, this may not be the time to ask for a raise. When is a good time to ask for a raise, especially if you've been with a company for a while? One, you've brought value and money, perhaps, to your organization or a new client, right? You've done something where you've really contributed. It's been a while, perhaps. It's time. Sometimes, and it depends. I just had a student worker come to me and I had thought I had given her a raise, and she asked for a raise, and I'm like, oh my gosh, so much has been going on. I was mortified. Thank God she asked me, right? So don't be shy. There's a lot going on with your employers. Maybe you were due a raise. Maybe things have been a little chaotic. So if you're due or you had a review, or maybe your review has been pushed off, ask for that review. Right? And then that's the time to talk. But when you get into a review situation, you ask for a meeting to review your work, you want to be prepared with what you've done, the value you have brought, and so you want to prepare for that conversation to remind your employer some of the things that you've done. A good time to ask for a raise is when you just got a big old pat on the back for something fabulous you did. A bad time to ask for a raise when your boss is in a really bad mood. Okay. So it should be a scheduled thing. Usually, get on your boss's calendar to have a talk, but go into it prepared. The other good time to ask for raise is when you're starting to get nibbles or maybe even offers from other companies. That's when you're in a bit of a power position, because you might need to come to your boss and say, you know what, I love it here. I've been asked to interview for our competitor XYZ. but I really don't want to go because I'd like to stay. That's when you have a little bit of power in that conversation, when somebody else or other recruiters are interested in you. That's a good time to ask for a raise. I hope that helps.
I think it did. Yeah, definitely. So kind of to follow up on that question, I know that sometimes people can feel weird about telling their boss, hey, I'm actually looking for other positions. And have you ever seen a situation where that ended badly for them, or how would they go about that if that was to happen?
Yeah, it's never a great idea to just go to your boss and go, especially in a pandemic, and go, I'm looking for another job, because they might have been looking for something in their budget to cut anyway. So there you go. And you might go, oh, well, you know what, since you're looking for another job, bye, right? I would really recommend right now, hold on to what you have until you have something else in hand. Again, I think the only time that you would go to your boss and say, listen, I've been approached, or, you want to let them know, I've been asked by another organization to interview. Even then, you might not, I wouldn't necessarily tell your employer unless you got a firm offer in hand, and go to them if you would like to stay. Otherwise, I would try to keep that job hunt on the down low. But if asked about it, then you probably have to have a conversation. But you want to keep it, you don't want to flaunt that in your employer's face. These kinds of situations can also, though, open up conversations you may not like. It may be, if you're asking for a raise, or your, boss finds out that you're looking for something, they might tell you, I haven't been satisfied with your work. Sometimes that happens, and or they've been looking for a reason to let you go. But you also find out if they really value you. Oh my gosh, what can we do to keep you, Jordan? We don't want you to go. What, let's talk about your future here. And then, right? It starts opening a conversation. But tread carefully, people. And again, timing is crucial.
All right, well, we have our next question. How do you transition or pivot your career when most of your experience lies in a different path?
So a lot of times, especially in the field of media and communication, you're doing a job that pays the bills, right? But you're wanting to pivot over here. And so there's a number of ways that you can start getting, so you've got a job, we'll call job A, and then on the side, maybe you're working on job B. I know a lot of people, and even I have a side business. For me, it's not ever going to be my full-time business, I don't think. But I speak for a living, partly, right? And a lot of people in our field have what we call the side gig, the side hustle. But for some of you, you want the side hustle to become the full-time thing. We were just talking about this in a class with a student who wants to be a stand-up comedian, right? They want to be a full-time stand-up comedian, but most writers, entertainers start with the full-time job here that pays the bills. But over here, they're volunteering, or they're practicing, or they're freelancing on the side. And they're building those skills. Maybe it's going back to school. You may have missed some of the skills you need in the area you want to pivot into. So there's a number of ways you can do that. You go back to school, you get your master's, you start getting experience in that way. You volunteer somewhere, you create your own Media on the side. It really depends what you're pivoting to. But again, it's not unusual for you to wear a couple different hats at a time, especially if you're trying to pivot. I was just talking to a woman who works for a nonprofit and she wants to start her own business. So she's going to continue working for the nonprofit while she's taking a client that she knows to be her first client and work with her to establish herself in this next area she wants to go into. Does that? I hope that.
Yeah, that was awesome advice.
Yeah.
When would you say is, when is the right time to look for a new career opportunity, in your opinion?
Well, sometimes you're forced into it, right? A lot of people are getting laid off right now, or they're being furloughed. So you're being forced into a situation where, hey, it's as good a time as any, right? To look, and this might be a time you want to pivot. Anyway, I would say right now, my best advice, if you have a full-time job right now with benefits, do not move, okay? I have talked to people who are like, I'm going to pull my hair out and go crazy right now. I want out now. But I'm going to tell you, until we get a vaccine and employers start hiring more and positions are open, you're in a vulnerable position. Hold on. That doesn't mean you don't look. You can look, right? And you should. If you're miserable, you should look. Again, kind of on the down low. Make sure you're doing your job. You hold on to the job you have. Do not neglect the job you're in, because you may need those benefits or whatever you're getting and the experience. And you don't really want a gap on your resume if you can help it. So try to hold on to what you have. And, look. And again, another sign that it may be time to look for another job is when recruiters start nibbling around, asking.
Mm-hmm.
If you see a job that you really want posted, by all means, get your resume out there. Update all of your documents, update your LinkedIn, update your resume. Make it clear on LinkedIn you're open for recruiters. When you have learned all you can learn at the place you're at, that's probably a good time to look for a new job. If you feel like there's no growth potential where you're at, it's another good time to look.
So just something that popped in my head as you were talking. So say if you do have a gap in your resume, or you were furloughed or you were laid off, is it best to acknowledge that on your resume, or how should you go about doing that?
Recruiters I'm talking to right now understand that there are going to be a lot of people with gaps on their resume due to no fault of their own. But what they want to know is maybe what you did during that time, during that gap, whether that was creating something on your own, like a podcast, okay? Whether it was creating your own blog, your own YouTube channel, that you were proactive, whether you volunteered. In other words, that you didn't sit on your behind during that time. We're even having some recruiters say, if you were offered something, an internship or a job, and it got pulled out from under you because of COVID, you might even be able to indicate that on your resume as well, with a bit of like an asterisk. Now, you might take that off later down the road, but it just shows that you were hired. These are highly unusual times, so we know there are going to be gaps on resumes. But I think what you do with that gap, do you increase your knowledge? Do you learn new tools? Do you create something on your own? That goes a long way. And on your resume, you can claim those things as relevant experience. Each of you, Hot Mess Podcast is should be on your resume under your relevant experience, present experience. Employers really value that. It shows them your work ethic, and that you're not sitting back. Those are the kind of people they want to hire.
So speaking of when you're in the hiring process, if a potential employer doesn't bring up, salary on your final interview and hasn't talked about it throughout that process, should you be the one to do that?
It's always best to let the employer bring up salary. When they're ready to hire you, they will offer you a salary. So if they're not offering you a salary in that last interview, it may not be the last interview. Maybe there's something else going on. Maybe they're waiting. It depends how a company is structured. Sometimes they have to get approval from some other level of management to make an offer. That offer may come over the phone or, in an email. So I would try to let them bring it up. I mean, there's a lot of research you can do online about what the average salaries should be. And usually, they may have asked you about a range. So whatever the salary offer is, it shouldn't be a surprise when it comes. But I really think it's best when the employer, because if you put a number out there, like I would like to know, you can ask, but maybe they're not ready to offer. When they are, I promise they will bring it up. You don't want to accept a job though and not know what am I getting paid for this, right? So you're never going to accept anything until you know exactly what the offer is. If they're offering you a job. Now, if you're in a situation where they're saying, okay, well, we'd love for you to come work for you. You can start on Monday, and they haven't said what the offer is. Okay, that's a different situation.
Right. I think that's what people are trying to say with this question, because some people have been in the situation where they've gone through the interview stages, they're comfortable with the company and everything, but they still don't know, okay, what number are they going to offer me at? Because sometimes if it's way lower than you were expecting, then you just go through this entire process of interviewing and meeting the team, and then just for nothing at the end because their salary isn't aligning with what you're looking for.
It shouldn't be that much of a surprise. Almost anything you can research online and find out who's making what for certain positions at companies. So hopefully it's not that big of a surprise. Mm-hmm. But if it gets to the point they're offering it to you, and by the way, I never think the whole interview process is a waste of time, right? It's always a good experience. That interview process, especially for you guys at this stage of the game, the more experience you have, the better, even if it turns out, oh, I can't take this isn't enough, right? You may have gone through a lot to get through the interview process, but you should have a pretty good idea, hopefully. And if you don't, you should come to someone like me, and I can probably help you figure that out.
That's great.
By the way, the Klein College Career Center is always open.
The promo.
Yeah.
Now, kind of changing the focus to more of life within, I guess, this unprecedented times. How do you stay motivated or focused when doing schoolwork or classes, or even just regular work, whether it's a job or internship, but being at home, being in a place that you typically feel comfortable to relax, but now you have to work?
Yeah, I think this is very challenging. Mm-hmm. I think it's very hard. And I think it is easy for some students. easy isn't the right word, but it's easy for a lot of us, whether you're a student or not, to just go, okay, I'm just going to wait till this is all over. I'm not going to put myself out there. I'm going to do kind of the minimum amount of work because this isn't real life. This isn't real. Why should I bother with all this? I'm just going to wait till the world rights itself. And all I can tell you is don't do that. Try not to do that. Understand that every single morning you wake up, you are making decisions that will influence your future. Every single day you wake up, you're making choices. And every single day, the way you show up in class, by the way, so many of your professors are connected to the industry. Yeah. You know, the way you show up to class, is your camera on, is your camera off? You know, I was just in a class the other day with a professor who has buku of contacts in the industry, right? But only maybe 5 students had their camera on. And guess what? That same day, that professor and I both got an email from an employer looking for a sports anchor. Okay. Who do you think is going to get the recommendation? They don't want to post it. They want recommendations directly from the professor or from me. Who's going to get the recommendation? The people who didn't have their camera on or sat back, right? And I think I get it. It's hard. It really is hard for everyone, but understand part of the reason you came to Temple and part of the reason you came to Klein is that your professors are connected to the industry that you want to be in many cases. And in some ways you're auditioning. And if you can take advantage of those opportunities to show up, to do as well as you can. I'm finding the people who get jobs, there are a group of students, graduates who graduated in May, right? So the pandemic started in March. They graduated in May. They graduated in the worst job market ever. And about 30-40% of our grads still got full-time jobs. How did they do that? They just stayed motivated. They had made connections with their professors. They were involved in activities. They did things. And, you know, whether everyone's different, you know, if you've got to make a list for yourself, like today I am joining this organization and I'm going to get involved here. Today I'm going to show up for this class. Today I'm going to do the best I can with this assignment. All of it still counts. All of it still counts. This is real time. This is not when, and guess what? A lot of your peers are going to sit back. A lot of your peers are going to say, yeah, not now. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to just press the easy button if I can. And again, understandable, but I guarantee you the students who decide, who kind of try to push themselves as much as they can anyway and take advantage of all the situations and opportunities in the meantime are going to be in a better situation when it's time to graduate. They just are. And we're all going to have bad days. We're all going to have bad days. I've had bad days where I just wake up and like, I'm sad. This is kind of sad. You know, I don't feel like my normal, right? And the other thing I would say to stay motivated, I know I'm really going on here, but get outside. I'll tell you the things that work for me. I have to work out every day. I have to get my body moving. You guys are young and active. Get outside where it's safe to move and breathe. Move your body. Be outside in nature. You guys are cooped up on your beds, in your rooms, and I see some of you not moving. I feel like that's dangerous. Mm-hmm. It's not good. Engage anywhere that you can. Try not to do TV marathons and you're already online enough. Get up, go do something. Go play. If you can't, I know you're limited, but go play. That is one of the healthiest things. Laugh. I watched a half-hour comedy show last night and I laughed and laughed. It wasn't even that good. It was like my whole body said, oh my God, I just need to laugh. And I felt better. I slept. Laughter is so important. So try something new. Learn something new if you can. I know you're already overwhelmed with all the things you have to learn, but learn something fun. Learn to hula hoop. I don't know. Learn to play a new game. All those things will help. And then hang in, because we just have a few more months of this and things are going to get better. Just hang in there.
That's great. Thank you.
On the topic of people being sad in this situation, maybe not feeling themselves, that kind of leads into our next question. If a student came to you and they said that they're having doubts about their career path right now and everything, and also just with everything going on, what would you say to them? Like if they're, say, like a journalism major and they're second guessing, like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Maybe I want to do something else in this field.
Yeah. I mean, that happens regardless of whether we're in a pandemic or not. Sometimes, we start with a dream, maybe in high school, and we get into it and realize, well, wait a second, this isn't really what I want to do. And sometimes it's hard to let go of something that you might have told all your friends and all your relatives, this is what I'm doing. And then you get to a point you go, wait a second, this is not really me. So you can get stuck feeling like, well, I'm married to this idea. What do I do now? Like, if I'm not going to do this, what do I do now? And that's where it's really good to talk to a career coach and use that resource, because this is what we're here for, to have that conversation. Journalists or people who can write, tell stories can do a lot of things with those skills, maybe things that you haven't thought of. It could go into advertising, writing, creating content for all kinds of different, everyone needs people who can write, and it doesn't have to be news. So the truth of the matter is, if you're a strong writer, you can do a lot of different things. And so, again, that's just the example of journalism. But talking to a career coach and talking about, when do you lose yourself? What do you love? What is the thing that and sometimes oftentimes the student will go, I don't know what I want to do. They really do, but they're afraid to go there. They're afraid to follow that path. And to be encouraged to go there. Do you find that, John, do you think that's, I don't know?
No, I was going to ask, kind of expanding on that, just from people I've known, even myself, like when I first went into college, I thought I wanted to major in English, because my dream job is personally to be like a novelist, like an actual story writer. But then I went into journalism because I figured I could get work writing all the time with that. And I've, as time went on, I started to enjoy it a lot, and I still really enjoy it. But sometimes I wonder, like, should I have pursued English? Like especially now, just with COVID going on, I think a lot of people are just having second thoughts, because they're just with themselves and their thoughts all day long. So I don't know if you're getting this question a lot from students more than often.
Yeah, I mean, I always think a journalism degree is a stronger degree than English, because you're learning AP writing style and some very specific skills. And I do know novelists, and most novelists have a day job, and then they write when they're off. They write that novel. I know people in Klein College right now working on their novels. Maybe, I know an advisor working on something right now. Always, as a writer, unless you become a best-selling author, the writing part is the side gig. But it's good to find another job using your writing skills that you enjoy too. Or maybe you know, it doesn't even have, it might be a PR job. You know, you might be writing for a university president. You might be a speechwriter for a politician. You might be writing copy for an agency where you're still being creative, but getting a paycheck, a regular paycheck while you're working on that great novel, you know?
That's been my plan from the beginning. Be
And
a journalist and do that on the side.
honestly, English, I don't know. I don't, I don't know if you need the English degree to write a novel. I wrote I Dare Me. It's not a novel. It's a self-help memoir. About a year, I did something new every single day for a year while I was working full time as a reporter. And I wrote it. I'd get up at 6 in the morning and I'd write for a couple hours and then I'd go to work, you know, and then on the weekends, I'd write from 6 in the morning till 12 in the afternoon, you know, and I put myself on a schedule to get that done. So writers do what they have to do to have that creative outlet, but I don't think it's a mistake to have a journalism degree. And, you know, we were talking about John Zissimos, who's vice president of Google, in charge of creative content and brand strategy. I think he was a journalist. He got his degree in journalism. Rich Levy, who's the creative director of Click Health, what's his degree in? He's in charge of all creative for that agency. Oh, journalism. So you can do a lot with a journalism degree. I wouldn't have any doubts about that. I wouldn't worry about, you know, whether it was English or journalism. I think you're good.
So sticking on the whole, COVID has been such a huge topic this entire year. I know for myself, I've been really curious about this. How do you think the work environment, being able to work from home or being on the office is going to change once everything, once the vaccine comes out and things start going back to normal?
Oh, I think it's going to change things forever. I really do. I think employers who really resisted having employers at home, I used to hear, from students who are like, oh, I really like my job. I get to work from home on Fridays. That was a big benefit. Now, I think employers who feared, like, how am I going to keep track of what my employers are doing if they're at home, have come to understand how this works. And in fact, some employers have completely gotten rid of their office space and saved money and been able to survive by sending everybody home. What I think is going to happen is, yes, some things will return, some offices will return, some work hours in the office will return. But I think we'll see more hybrid situations, and that it will be far more acceptable to work remotely, and far more accepted by employers who've now experienced like, oh, I can see the benefit of this. So yeah, for those who say we're going back to the way things were when we get a vaccine, I don't think so exactly. I think we will have forever been changed. The workplace will forever be changed as a result of this to a certain degree. I know a company that even before this happened, they had a core staff of people, but then all their consultants, people were out working in the field. And then on Fridays, they all came together 1 day a week. And they had special events and special things they did together 1 day a week in the office. And I think we're going to see more of those kinds of situations. You get together maybe periodically or, so you can see each other. And then you may be working out remotely. So, yeah, I see that happening.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I was thinking too. I could definitely see a hybrid situation coming from this because my first time full-time job, it was the same. They didn't want us working from home. And now that they saw that, oh, they actually can, be able to be productive and work from home, I think it would definitely can see for a lot of other offices too, you know, the dual situation there.
Yeah.
Well, our last question that we have for you is, what is the most important advice you can give a young professional looking to get into like a media or communication field?
Okay. Well, that's a big question. Try to stay as positive and proactive as you can. If you're in school right now and listening to this, get to know your professors. Get to know the people, join professional organizations and get to know the other people in those organizations, because guess what? The people who graduate before you, they are the ones who are most likely to recommend you and pull you into a job. So, you know, try to keep your grades. I'm not going to tell you that being the 4.0 student is like the most important thing in our field, but try to be a 3.0 student, okay? Try to at least, you know, keep it 3.0 and above, because that shows something to employers. But honestly, once you get your first job, probably no one will ever ask you about your GPA again.
Mm-hmm.
But while you're in school and getting that first job, that could help as evidence that you work hard, you know, that you're committed, especially in your major. Use the resources that are free and available to you, like the Klein College Career Center. You know, we're here for you. You are paying for that, by the way. It's not actually free. It's part of your tuition. It's part of what you pay for. So come see us. Come let us help you with your resume and your LinkedIn and your cover letter. And even when you graduate, know that our door is still open to you. Take advantage of every networking opportunity. Anyone comes to your class, any guest speaker, write them. Thank them for coming. Try to connect with them on LinkedIn. Stay connected, because you just never, ever know what that will lead to. And I would say that the students who have done those things, they tend to get jobs. Even now, that's kind of like your insurance policy. Even in bad times, doing all those things will give you a much better chance of landing on your feet.
All
That's
right.
awesome advice.
That's it.
Advice.
All right. Did we have any other questions for Lu Ann while we have her?
I guess I would say something that I was kind of thinking, when you do start building a network with somebody in the industry, how often should you be following up with them? You know, what is respectful and what's crossing the line?
Yeah, you don't want to be a pain in the behind so much, but you know, there are graduates who once every 6 months, let's say, I'll get an email from them. Here's the latest thing I've been working on. I just wanted you to see. Keeping them, I saw this article and I thought of you, you know, or this happened and I thought of that great advice you gave me, right? Staying in touch with your network, your mentors, creating that constellation of mentors and staying in touch with them, not just when you need them necessarily, or when there's an issue, but letting them know how you're doing. I just wanted to check in with you and let you know this has happened and update you. I always appreciate everything you did. Yeah. And you know, staying in touch with people you interned for, if it was a good experience, you know. Keeping them in the loop, because I promise you, all these people who spent time with you, whether it was a professor or someone teaching you, they're invested in you and they get a great deal of gratification out of seeing you do well. And you know, you never know the next time that they may be in a position too to recommend you for the next big thing in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that channel of communication open, whether that's a holiday card, a little thank you, just thinking of you, liking something they put up on social media. All those little things count.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, we've come to the end of our show. Lu Ann, I want to thank you so much for coming on and giving such great advice. I think a lot of students at Temple and maybe even other colleges, if they're listening, will get a lot of, they're going to get a lot of benefit out of what you've discussed with us today. So I want to thank you for that.
I hope so. And I can just want to say you're not a hot mess. None of you. I know that. But thanks for helping all of us, all those who in those moments think, yes, I'm just a hot mess. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you. This has been the Hot Mess Podcast. I am your host, John Fay, with Jordan Ezel, Allison Silbowski, and our great guest, Lu Ann Cahn. Thank you all, and we'll see you all in the next episode.